Good morning on this bright and sunny summer's day in the UK. I'm Graham Barlow and this is the Tai Chi Notebook Podcast, episode 31. Mantis Boxing, Brazilian Jiujitsu, Self-Defense, Shamanic Rituals and Heretics in Martial Arts with Randy Brown. I've just been in Cardiff for 3 days at the Martial Arts Studies Conference, which was great. I did a small write-up about it on my blog, so head to thetaichinotebook.com if you'd like to find out more about that. At one of the evening meals at the conference, I was sitting at a table with a guy called Randy Brown, and we started talking about Tai Chi, and the next minute we were standing up and showing each other techniques in the restaurant and getting on like a house on fire. So it turns out we both have background in China's martial arts, and we both teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So the next day I grabbed Randy, got him to sit down with me with my Zoom recorder, and we did this podcast you're about to listen to. Now I really enjoyed this chat with Randy, and I felt we really saw martial arts in the same way, especially around the aspect of keeping systems alive and stopping them becoming dead. So, here we go. Hello, welcome. I'm here with Randy Brown of Mantis Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Boxing. No, Mantis Boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a mouthful. You need to work on your branding, man. Come on. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Graham?
I am very well. We've been at the Martial Arts Studies Conference for 3 days, so we're slowly going insane.
Yes.
But we've had lots of excellent talks.
Lots of sitting.
Lots of sitting down, yeah. And we've just done some push hands, actually, which was interesting. Got to push some people that I've only read about online before. So tell me about this combination of Mantis Boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how that came about.
I started Mantis Boxing Tonglung Chuan 25 years ago. And I was practicing that for about 13 years. I did a few attempts at starting jiu-jitsu that went very badly. Entered some horrible gyms. I don't know why I continued searching, but I eventually found a good place and a good teacher. And so I started BJJ. And prior to that, I had been trying to unravel the techniques inside Mantis Boxing and Tai Chi, like what's the combat application that used to exist, but you're looking through the lens of always being a striker and kicker.
Yeah.
So everything's a punch, everything's a kick, everything's a block. And about a year after I started BJJ, I started to see this explosion in my head where it's like, oh my God, there's so much grappling in these arts.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a little research and finding like the roots of a lot of the northern Chinese styles were grounded in wrestling, shuaijiao type, jacket wrestling, no jacket wrestling. And it quickly became apparent to me how well BJJ blended with Mantis when you started adding in the grappling. Because now when you're getting to the clinch and you're getting to the flank and you're taking somebody down, there's just this natural transition from I was here, now I'm here. There's no pause. There's no like, oh my God, I got to get back to my feet.
Yeah, exactly. There's no panic about it.
No, just go to work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, every time my Tai Chi teacher did an application, it ends up with you on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the end point.
Yeah.
Anyway, of any stand-up art is the other person on the ground.
Right.
So if you've never done anything to do with the ground, it's like, well, why wouldn't you?
Right. and there's such a panic with people that we have when we're on the ground where we either feel like we have to get to our feet. People gas themselves out because there's that, I can't be here right now. This is really bad. And
yeah, or there's a panic of not. I remember before I started jiu-jitsu, I was doing a little martial get-together. This is in San Francisco in a park. I'd gone over there for a conference and I'd met up with some guys I've been talking to online. And they were all Chinese martial art practitioners. Mm-hmm. And one guy got me in a headlock. And I remember thinking the only way out of this is to roll on the ground, but I don't want to because I don't know anything about the ground. So I just like, at that point, I realized that there was a big gap in what I could do. And then I went away and filled it. So that was kind of the motivation for me.
Were these, was this Brendan Lai's group or Adam Shoes in Golden Gate Park?
It was in Oakland.
Oh,
Fairyland. They called themselves the Fairyland Fight Club.
Okay.
Which sounds hilarious. Yeah. Because the park was called Fairyland.
Yeah.
And there were lots of geese around. That's all I remember. There's goose shit everywhere. So you do.
That's another reason to not go to the ground.
That's another reason. But yeah.
But they'd been, one guy was Shuai Jiao, one guy was Bagua, one guy was Tai Chi. It was like a mix of friends who, it wasn't like one unified school. Right.
I'd just been talking to on a forum, the days of the forum.
Yeah, the day of the BBS and the forums.
Yes. Because that's how martial arts used to, like, meet each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Mantis then. Tell me about Mantis. What's the particular style of Mantis that you did? Or do?
My own.
Perfect answer.
Is I feel strongly about that because I believe that martial arts is not robotic or assembly line, where students copy the coach or the teacher early on, but then the art is really making it work for your body type, your flexibility, your strength, your movement patterns. You can have people that do match identically, so they should move very similar. There are wide variations where people shouldn't. So encouraging that in the process, and through that, if we take it a little further and say Chinese martial arts especially, karate too, when we do forms, these are practicing the arts of dead men. And if not making it our own, we're just continuing to propagate or perpetuate the cycle of giving something that was built hundreds of years ago. And that's fine as a tool, but then where do we make it our own? So I don't like being beholden to any style, saying I do 7-star or I do 8-step or I do plum flower Mantis.
Right, yeah.
Because at this point, I've made it my own, and I teach what I want to teach, and that's it.
That's cool.
Very easy.
So I want to ask you about how you teach it, because do you have students that are just jiu-jitsu, or do you have students that are just Mantis, or is it everyone does everything?
Great question. So I used to have more division, and occasionally I get people who they initially contact me for one.
Right.
And I don't force anything on people. Like, you have to do both. But they quickly, when they get into the group and the team, they quickly realize that I need to be more well-rounded.
Okay.
Like if I just want to do BJJ, and you talk especially sport, well, I don't know how to take people down. I don't know what to do if they're punching me. I can never get my hands on them or kicking. So you have it from that side, and then from the stand-up side, you have people that just want to do Mantis or stand-up. It's like, what happens when I get on my ground and this person's now not letting me do anything?
Yeah.
I feel inept. So it's self-motivating in the cycle. So that answers the question. You said, how do I teach it? And so sorry. What did you mean specifically?
Well, I kind of meant, like, do you have separate classes for the separate things? Or is it combined?
No, I do have separate, because there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
Right. It's very difficult if you were trying to combine it all into one class.
Yeah. Okay.
It's how do I focus on this part of the ground, this part?
When you initially said it, I thought maybe in a 1-hour class, you do Mantis standing into a technique, into a takedown, and then you do a jiu-jitsu, like, follow-up, and then you just roll.
That's way too much.
That's too complicated.
Way too much. I couldn't do that. I feel that's doing a disservice to the student too, because you're just brushing over everything so quickly. It's like people need time to assimilate new information and build skills.
Yeah, so it's better to learn in isolation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have back-to-back classes. So whether it's the kids team or the adults team, we go right from Mantis Boxing into Jiu-Jitsu class. There's kind of no seamless.
Yes, and it's just, so it's basically the same people.
Yeah,
just stay on mat.
Yeah,
and you're into the next.
Yeah, go get a sip of water and let's switch to the ground. And now we're going to focus on this position.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And then there's also the question of, because Mantis doesn't have a sports side, right? It's a self-defense art, whereas jiu-jitsu has a sport and a self-defense side. How do you approach that? Or are you mainly self-defense?
So I trained sport jiu-jitsu, and I stuck with what I was being taught until I got my black belt. And then I found So 2 years ago, this is a excellent question, because 2 years ago, I caught myself on the mats. We were going through guard position, closed guard.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cover guard, and we're going to work these submissions, escapes, passes. And I started to show break, guard break. Okay, grab the belt, push back, round your back.
Yeah.
Right? And I caught myself saying these things in my class, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Because you're just going to get punched in the face trying to hold somebody's belt.
With two hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is totally, like, outside of what my goal in jiu-jitsu is, because a lot of people start jiu-jitsu because they want to know how to fight or defend themselves. Not fight like I want to go enter a fight, but I want to know how to protect myself. So if I'm teaching them to grab somebody's belt and do a guard break that is not playing that game and they're just punching them in the face, then I'm doing them a disservice. And so it just caused me to kind of look at my own stuff and start to rewire things. Like, okay, how are we going to deal with this if somebody's punching us or poking us in the eye?
And what about the aspect of, because I quite often grapple in my own mind with self-defense as a subject when you're on a mat wearing a gi with no shoes on, and then translating that into a situation where it's dark, you're on a pavement, and it's wet, and maybe there's more than one of them. You know, do you do any work on sort of crossing that divide?
Yes, but more of a workshop format. So again, there's like so much to cover. So, and I don't feel like we need to spend exorbitant amounts of time on that. It's kind of like, okay, hey everyone, we're going to do a seminar this weekend on multi-attackers. So now, or I do it with knife too. Like
Knife, yeah, of course, that's the great thing, isn't it?
So, okay, we're all working on our boxing and jiu-jitsu, but now let's introduce a knife this weekend.
Yeah, that changes things very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, and everybody starts to quickly rewire, like, oh my God.
I think suddenly grabbing people's wrists becomes really important. When you look at some martial arts where it's all about defending wrist grabs, you're thinking, well, why am I offering my wrist and they're grabbing it? Why would they grab it?
Yeah.
Like, it's because you're holding a knife, right? Like, of course I'm grabbing your wrist. I'm not letting it go.
And I'm not going to give that up.
Yeah.
Right now I'm a pit bull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally changes your perspective
It does.
of martial arts. If you think the reason I'm really motivated to hold your wrist, that's why someone keeps trying to grab my wrist. Yeah.
I think what I really like about your question, though, is it is too easy in the martial arts world, because we enter a certain style and we get into that ecosystem, and it's almost like a cult where we just we forget our initial motivations and we get wrapped up in this, is it zeitgeist? Is that the right word? Where everybody's like focused on the sport component of, okay, well, these rules and this concept, and if you violate those on the mats, you're the problem in that gym. Not the, hey, everybody, we should look at this. Like, what's this person doing right now, and do we have an answer for this?
Yeah. I quite often find myself, we're talking about catching yourself, whenever I'm trying to teach leg locks in the class, I catch myself spending about 10 minutes explaining the rules to people, because the rules in jiu-jitsu are really confusing about leg locks. Like, you can have an ankle lock on the bottom, it's fine, but if you're locking the ankle that's on the top, that's suddenly illegal, right? Because of leg reaping.
You're preaching at knee wire. I was disqualified from a IBJJF competition for that, for
knee reap.
Illegal, knee reap.
Yeah, and a knee reap you don't even feel it.
No.
Like, it's not even
I didn't even know what I was doing.
Exactly.
The ref told me to stand up, and I was like, what happened? Were we out of bounds? And then I went to grapple with the guy again, and he's like, no, you're done.
Yeah. The last competition I went to, I only saw one disqualification. It was slamming.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy pulled guard and he just stood up. I went, boom.
Yeah.
And I was like, instant DQ. But, on the street, that ain't going to happen.
No, and that's an interesting component. It's kind of a personal thought on that rule in jiu-jitsu competition, where if you're going to allow people to jump guard, then not that slamming people on their head is a good thing,
they probably go unconscious, right? If you slam people from that height,
right?
If they're fully standing, and
so
but jumping guard is so dangerous.
It is. Yeah, people have knocked themselves out doing it.
Well, it's a broken leg I'm worried about. Somebody jumped guard on me in training, and it was I could feel my leg start to hyperextend, and it was very close. But I just managed to pull it back in time, right? Yep. But jumping guard is something somebody does to you. It's almost like you have no choice in the mat. If someone's gonna jump at you, it's up to them,
right?
And how they land is if they're reckless and they just land on your leg, there's nothing you can do about it really. It's why it's such a nasty technique.
It is, and I think that if you look at it outside of weight classes, which is another thing that I often try to observe with everything we do, if it only works in weight class, I don't like to do it.
Yeah.
So if somebody's like 250 pounds and they go to jump guard on somebody who's 150, how's that look? How's that person's back?
It looks like a mess.
Yeah. It's not going to go well for either side of that party because the person can't hold them up and the other person is trying. And
yeah. Interesting. So just going back to the Mantis again, what is the people that might not be familiar, what's the kind of signature techniques of Mantis?
Really, to answer your question honestly, through the research I did, most of it was a brand that showed up in the late Qing dynasty.
Yeah.
So when you look at the techniques inside of it, they're very common in most Northern Chinese martial arts. So every once in a while on the forum, somebody would do the signature, like 2 hooks.
Yeah. The classic hooky.
But it's like, we do Mantis, right?
Yeah.
But all the other, like you could see, my background when I started in Mantis, there's a little side story there we can cover or not cover. I became disenchanted with Mantis because of a bad experience with trying to go to train at a temple that went badly. And again, we can come back to that. I haven't told that story before. So I switched to Eagle Claw for a bit. So I got kind of disenfranchised, switched to Eagle Claw. I was doing that for a bit, and then I ended up in a school in the city where it was more eclectic. So they did wushu, they did Mantis, they did long fist, they did southern fist, but all forms, and then the sparring was just like bad kickboxing. And that was only like in the latest class of the night, like, okay, everybody go get gloves on and let's pound each other in the head. So I got to compare Mantis to other styles of Chinese martial arts, gave me a perspective, like seeing common theme, like that has this same moves in that, same things in this. And when I started doing Tai Chi and teaching Tai Chi, that was where a few years later, I was like, these are like brother and sister, Mantis and Tai Chi. Like they have many of the principles that you find, the keywords are shared, plus the movements and some of the techniques. They call them different things, but they're the same move.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, but it's more of that. If there was a signature move, I would say that it's what you make your signature moves.
Yeah, because I've got a bit of a background in Choi Fut, and for me, the signature move of that is always the Sao Choi, which is the sweeping fist. However, look at Hungar, that's got it, right? It's probably in Mantis, right? It's probably in everything.
We talked last night, it was in Gongli Chun.
Yeah.
The form, this fighter's form, this boxer's form, that same thing. They call it 3-ring circle the move.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just call it sweeping fist, But, everyone's like, it's just the best technique. Main technique. And then, you just go look at any other Chinese martial art and, they do it too. Oh.
Yeah.
It's not secret and special.
No.
It's just that we like it.
Yeah, and have you ever read Joseph Escherich's book on the Boxer Rebellion?
I mean to.
The Boxer Uprising.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. It's on my list of things.
I feel like so Ben Judkins, I met him a few years ago, and I was doing a lot of research on the roots of Mantis, and he said, if you haven't read Joseph Escherich, then you're failing, basically, in a nutshell.
I feel like I'm failing.
I feel, it was very eye-opening to me, and I feel as people who are passing on Chinese martial arts, knowing and understanding more about what happened in the Qing dynasty, the late Qing dynasty, with Chinese martial arts, because Escher does talk about even the environment where a lot of these rituals we do in Chinese martial arts at the beginning of a form, or they're rooted in shamanism, and a lot of it is, what do you call it? Like you're an avatar for a higher power, for a deity. Yeah, we're trying to
sort of channeling for you.
Yeah, you channel.
Yeah,
and it's we're doing the movements, but we don't understand the context or what it came from.
Yeah,
and that not only that, the environment at the time was very much open. People were sharing. Like you didn't go study Choi Lafoot or Mantis. You found, hey, Graham he's really good at this strike and this takedown. So I want to go study with Graham. Can you show me that strike and takedown? And you would show that to somebody if they were somebody you wanted to show it to, right? And you would add that to your repertoire. It's part of your arsenal now. And then you would move on to another teacher because they would have more stuff.
Yeah, we've got such a different view of it, isn't it?
Yes.
Like everyone thinks, oh, the stars kept their secret techniques and they didn't share anything. But I mean, in my lineage, you go back to Qiyu Chang. He used to send his students off to train with other kung fu masters, and then they'd bring it back to him. He had a whole network of this stuff going on.
Yes, it was more open, and I think that's why I say we need to understand more about the history, so we don't get locked into this dogma of not sharing, not helping each other grow, not this. You can only train in my school. You can't go anywhere else. I encourage people to go other places.
Well, that's a problem with some jiu-jitsu schools, though, isn't it? That in the modern age is they're very insular,
which they didn't used to be. It's like turning into the other arts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess because it kind of started very small in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
And it was all, apparently when they started the Gracies, it was all private lessons. They weren't classes. All they did was teach private. So you'd have one student come in, they teach them. Half an hour later, an hour later, they go out. The next one will come in.
Okay,
and that's how they did it.
Huh?
Isn't that weird?
No, I do that. I do team classes, but I do a lot of
but so jiu-jitsu is known for rolling, right?
Right,
where you are in a room full of people and you just go from partner to partner. Yes, and that never happened. That came later. That was I think Hull's Gracie in that sort of era.
Mm-hmm.
That's when all that started, because they went out and met wrestlers and they're like, oh, we can just do the wrestling bit. Cool,
right?
So
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, so jiu-jitsu, when it started, it was a very different animal to the way we think of it now. It's evolved over time, right?
It's evolved, and then we almost devolve. Like we turn things. We seem to do it with every style of martial art, where it hits this line, and then it's very different and unique, and then it starts to turn into everything else. Like the same behavior patterns come in, the same dogma starts to set in.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's human nature, right?
Yeah, and we always like to things up.
So at some point, it's like religion, isn't it? That some guy has an idea, he's just kind of like open about it, and then someone writes it down.
Yeah,
and it becomes you must do this.
Yes.
And then it's this endless repeating cycle of eventually someone will break free of all that and start their own thing, and then their disciples write it down and go, no, you must do this.
Well, you skip the part where they're first branded a heretic for years and years until, because it was all great to praise and worship this person 200 years ago that was the innovator. That God forbid you innovate now in the present day. Yeah. Now you're just a scumbag that doesn't understand the art. And
exactly.
Not that I have any bitter feelings about this.
But before we finish, come on, what's the temple story?
Oh, no. So,
my journalist nose is sniffing out something good here.
I was part of this style of Mantis, and they built a temple in Florida. And I was
what sort of temple are we talking? Like, is this like Chinese religious temple?
Well, no, it was a kung fu temple. Like you went and they had rooms. You stayed there for
okay.
So,
but it wasn't religious.
No, I think they had some like meditation practices mixed in through the day.
But there's no altar with incense.
There was, yeah.
Okay, so it's slightly religious, but
yeah,
not focused on religion,
right? Like worship, like pay respect to the ancestors, and I was so excited. I went to my boss. I only got 1 week vacation, and actually, sorry, I missed this year. No vacation. You had to be there a year, so I didn't even have permission to take time off, and I asked for a month off so I could go to the temple. And the owner, luckily, of the company I work for, he was a martial artist too, so he cut me some slack, and he's like, "Okay, we'll let you do this." I saved up money. I was making $7 an hour, rent, bills, all that. I saved up, and I was so looking forward to going. So a few months out, so you have to give a deposit, and part of it is non-refundable, but the other part is. So long story short, finances got really tight, and I was having difficulty making ends meet, and I couldn't go. I was really upset, but I contacted them. And I said, look, I can't go. I'm sorry. I really want to go. Can I get my deposit back? I get no answer. No answer. I'm emailing. Now, this is like late 90s, right? So I get an email back. It has a virus. And I said, I'm sorry, can you send me a letter instead because your email is infected with virus? And so I go back and forth, and I'm not getting responses, and I really need this money. It's finally I get this response that from the owner's wife that I am unworthy of doing kung fu. I lack patience and understanding, and they have been super busy running a tournament in Orlando, and that there's good reasons why they have not answered me for over 6 weeks.
That's a long tournament.
Yes. And that I am undeserving of being able to go to the temple, and I am banned for life.
Banned for life. Goodness.
So now you can
hello, Eagle Claw. Here I come.
Yeah. Hello, Eagle Claw. Yes. Please, I embrace the eagle. Give me the raid so I can kill the bug. I ended up coming back to Mantis later, but yeah, it was very disappointing, and I felt like it was a very oppressive response and more.
Yeah, but martial arts can be like that, can't they? That's the problem.
Yeah,
and it's nice to meet someone who's not like that.
Yes, I agree. Hence why we've had good conversations at this conference.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's a wrap. We can't beat the temple story. We'll see. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and if people want to get in touch or find out more about yourself, what's the best way?
Randy Brown, mantisboxing.com, or just search Randy Brown Mantis, and I'm sure you'll find me and go from there.
Cool.
I don't do a lot of Facebook or Instagram anymore. So.
But you're on YouTube, aren't you?
I have a YouTube channel.
You've got some really good videos, actually.
Thank you. I appreciate
demonstrating the use of Mantis as a takedown system into Jiu-Jitsu, which
anti-G,
yeah,
and tying it together with BJJ too. So
really, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely.